All right. So I implemented the thumbnail. You click on the thumbnail, you go directly to that page. But I also implemented the two buttons, a button forward and a button back. And if you notice, again, this one has the instance name of button forward. This one has the instance name of button back. And I've added listeners to those. That says when you click on the button, call the button forward click handler, click the button back click handler. Yes?
Just a quick question on the last one. When you had scene 2, then you click on it to go to the next one. Did you turn that text into a symbol to make it
Yes.
clickable? Okay.
Yes. Whatever you make, you're going to make it as a symbol so you can attach code to it.
Okay.
All right. Notice what I've done here, though. I've started off with the back button invisible. All right. So that's an interesting thing. You can make things invisible. All right. You can really change anything about those controls. All right. I've set a variable to I. All right. What does that mean? I is the picture that I'm on, or the picture that I want to. Actually, it's the frame that I'm on. All right. So initially, when we first load it up, I'm on the page with just the thumbnail, so I'm on frame 1. Now, when I click on these buttons, if I click the forward button, I add 1 to the frame I'm on. If I'm at the very end, I make the forward button invisible. Right? If I'm already looking at the last picture, there's no point in clicking the forward button. So I make the forward button invisible. Otherwise, I make the forward button visible. And likewise, if I'm on the first image, if I'm on image 1, which is in frame 2, I make the back button invisible. Then I go to the last frame. I go to the frame that I'm on. Likewise, with the back button, I do the same thing, except I subtract 1 from I and look to see if I'm on the last one. If I were smart, I could copy this code into a function of its own and not have it repeated. All right, that would be an enhancement. But again, I didn't want to make it too confusing for those that don't have much of a programming background. But this would be a way to implement a forward and backward sort of thing. All right. What's interesting about this is I'm using a variable that's keeping track of what frame it's on, and I'm also changing the visibility of things based on where they are in the list of pictures. So a couple more examples I want to go over today. I'm going to try to do all this today so that Monday, we can start with the plan as I've laid it out. All right. Let's see. Flash in Flash. I can never remember if home or index is starting for this one. Yes?
I have a question about this language. What is the name of the language? And
Actionscript.
Where else is it applied? And what other formats besides Flash?
Actionscript is used only in Flash. The style of coding resembles very closely C, C#, C++, Java, etc. But ActionScript per se is only within Flash.
It kind of looked like Visual Basic.
I was going to say that.
Well, Visual Basic doesn't use the curly brackets and all that. C# does and all that. One thing to remember, and again, this is one reason that I'm not going overboard with the scripting, is programming. Every programming language you ever see in your life will have an if statement, right? Because it's going to be kind of boring programs that do the same thing every time, right? Real programs, programs of any substance, if one condition is true, you do one thing. If one condition is true, you do something else, all right? If it's true, you do one thing. If it's false, you do something else. So really, any sort of substantial programming language or any real programming language is going to have an if statement in it. So yeah, in that respect, Visual Basic has if statements, as does this, as will any programming language. Every programming language will have loops. Every programming language will have ways to do arithmetic, and so on. So in that respect, that's one thing why it is, learning your first programming language is probably the hardest. After that, if you have the concepts down really well, it's largely just a matter of syntax. Okay, I know how to write a loop in Visual Basic. How do I write that same loop in Java or Actionscript or PHP or so on down the line? Okay, in this example, here's what I have. I have, again, 3 my navigational links, which are just text that I made into symbols. All right. I then have a movie, which is like a placeholder, an empty movie clip. All right. If you look at the action script for this, I think you used to be able to double click on it and see the action. That's why I keep doing that. I have some code here. Let me describe what this code does. All right? What this code does is this. It loads into that empty placeholder. It loads the movie called Home when I first load the page. So everything, all the code that is outside the function gets done the first time it loads. So I have this sort of empty placeholder. Think of this as a picture frame without a picture in it. When this page loads, I load the Home SWF animation into that picture frame. When I click on the button, I load page1.swf. Now I only implemented a couple of these. I didn't implement all of these. So, but let's take a look to see how this works. So when I load, the animation that's in that frame here is home.swf. When I click on this, it loads the other animation. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm swapping the animation that's in that container. That container is an empty movie. It's a picture frame. And I'm popping out the one animation and adding the other one in. So to the question that someone asked before, is there a quick way to get around the issue that I said with scenes? If you don't use that technique, if you use this technique, you don't have that, because each scene then is an animation of its own. So you're just loading that in there.
Can you go over that again?
Yeah. This page starts out with a couple navigation things here and an empty movie, a movie that has nothing in it. This is called placeholder.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Those 2 movies that you just played, those, were they stored as SWF files?
Yeah.
Where are they stored?
They're stored in the exact same folder.
In a folder?
Yeah, in the same folder. Yeah.
They don't have to be, but
They don't have to be, but if they didn't, you'd have to supply the path to them. But just to keep everything easy, putting it all in the same folder. All right. So here's my placeholder movie that starts out with nothing in it. I then have Actionscript code that says, remember, everything that's outside of the function occurs when the page initially loads. These 4 statements say, in effect, grab the movie home.swf and pop it into that placeholder. All right. So now when the page loads, home.swf is in that placeholder, and that video plays and plays and plays. When I click on the link for page 1, it gets rid of that old movie, tosses it out, and it adds to it a new movie that is page1.swf. So each of these is its own little animation. So that's the home one, and this is the page 1 one. So each of those are its own animation. What index is index, just think of it as a container. It contains a navigation, and it contains a place to pop in those other movies. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I load in that first movie. When I click the button, I load the second movie. Notice I don't have anything for the other buttons. I left that incomplete, so you could go back and add that. Yes?
How do you set up the empty frame?
How do you set up an empty frame? That's a darn good question. You just go like this. Insert new symbol. I call it placeholder. I'll call this one PH. And I'm there inside that symbol. All right? So I could put some animation in here, but in this case I didn't. I just went back to scene 1. And then I have a symbol called PH. It's in my library. I can put it where I want to. All right? But there's really nothing in it. So it's effectively an empty movie. It's like a picture frame that I'm going to put in. I'm going to substitute that dummy movie, that placeholder movie, with the actual movies. Yes?
I was playing with movie clips because I was watching that Adobe TV thing
Yeah.
that they have in it. And I made a movie clip and stored it, and it looked just like that. But when I dragged it out to the stage, all I got was that little circle.
Okay.
So are you supposed to be able to grab a movie clip and put it onto the stage, and it will?
I would think you'd be able to do that, but yeah, we can take a look. Keep in mind, I'm giving you like a handful of things that you can do. There's a myriad of other things that you can do. They might have been going after something else with that example. All right. I want to bring up 2 more examples, and I just want to introduce them to you. I know I'm taking a long time today, but actually, I lied. 3 examples. And I would urge you to take a look at these, especially if you think that this is relevant to maybe something that you want to do for your project. This first one's a neat little thing. And again, these are in the advanced animation folders. The navigation ones were in the image folders. This one's a neat little magnifying glass that is actually very cleverly done. All right. There I have a picture of some pottery. Pardon me?
That's a good picture.
I didn't take it. Actually, a friend of mine did. But all right. Here's how this works. As you put your mouse over that, you magnify it. So that could be useful in different contexts. If you wanted to show, a motherboard on a computer, you could have a small picture of it and expand it as you go over. Let's look very quickly how we did this. All right? There's 3 layers here. The one layer is the small image that you see. The other layer is the big image that you see. All right? So in other words, there's a big version of the image and a small version of the image. The third is what's called a mask layer. Now, a mask layer works just as the opposite of a regular layer. Well, how does a regular layer work? Well, the way a regular layer works is, if there's something there, it'll block anything that's underneath it. All right? And if there's nothing there, it will let whatever's underneath it show through. Think of the cellophane things that you draw on. If if, or the clear frames. If I draw a face, then I have another layer and draw a mustache over it, in position. If I put it in the right position, it looks like the face has a mustache, right? These masks work the opposite way. That is, the stuff where there is something on a mask layer shows through. Where there is nothing, it's blocked. So I converted this circle layer into a mask layer by, let's see, I think I converted, clicked on the layer and I said make it a mask layer. And then, where that black spot appears is going to show through from the other layer. Well, what's in the other layer? Well, what's in the other layer is the big picture. I then have Actionscript to go in and allow folks to drag that around. All right. This actually is done on an earlier version of Actionscript. So you could do something similar in a later version, but the code would probably look a little different. And what am I doing? I'm programming the position, if you notice. The X and Y coordinates. I'm moving that thing around. Another thing, this is something a student asked me how you do. They want to do a little bit of an animated Mouseover effect. So when you put your mouse over it, something slid into position very slowly. And this is what I came up with for that. Oh, shoot. All right. So when I run this, it shows like this. As I put my mouse over that, it kind of slides into position. As I take my mouse off, it slides out. So if you think about it, this would be a different way to do your thumbnails, right? Now, if you look at this, I have really sort of the basic kind of code that I've had in all my other ones. Oops, I stop it. Again, this is also written in an earlier version of Actionscript, but what I do is as I put my mouse over the button, I roll in, and then I roll out. Finally, and again, this one is shown more just to talk about the capabilities. This is something I actually worked on with a student of mine that worked at the college that wanted to do something, create maybe a little simulation for the nursing department. And what this is a little simulation to help you read a syringe. All right? In other words, when you go and run this, that shows you how much liquid is in there. You have to be able to go in and type in the answer. Like, for example, that would be 2.1, I think. Let's see what's going on. There we go. Trying to find how I can set the background color for this.
Trying to better.
Trying to change the color of the text box. That's the color of the text. I'm trying to change the color of the background.
The background.
Yeah.
Control H probably gets you to the proper.
Control H.
Control J.
Control J. Oh, there we go. That's a document. That'll change the background color of everything. I want to change the background color of just the text, yeah. All right. I do apologize. But there is a place for you to put the answer in. Shoot. At any rate, what you can do when you look at this is that there's a lot of Actionscript going on in here. Yeah. At any rate, I do apologize for the confusion on this. Let's.
T, while you're in there, you can change the color of the font.
Go to T.
Yeah. T on the right. No, not the, I mean back on the scene one.
Okay.
So you go into the box where you want to change the color of the font. Go into T on the right, far right, top. Yeah, see where it says T. Click on that, or click on the box that you want to change. Then click on the T and then click on the color.
That's the color of the font, though. That's not the color of the text box.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right. Anyhow, it's not worth spending time trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong here. I'm doing something stupid.
Will you give us extra credit if we figure it out?
No. At any rate, again, I show these just to sort of give you a sense. The idea of this is you would input your answer and it would tell you if you were right or wrong. So if you look at the script, it grabs the value from the text box, looks at the right answer, and tells you if you're right or wrong. Plus, there's some randomization that moves that syringe in the proper place depending on how much is supposed to be in there. So you can take a look at that. If you have questions, let me know. Again, the point isn't this particular example, but the concepts involved. All right. So, starting next week, we will convene in here. I'll see if there's anything that folks want to discuss. If you want to discuss it, you can either listen to the discussion or go to LAM. That's how the rest of the class will go. Do take a look and see what other people are doing. Do ask questions. We'll see you over in LAM.